Hi there, everybody. Just welcome you to the Runners School information night. It's great to see that you're all on board and taking that leap to listen a little bit more and find out what's happening and how Runners School can help you achieve your goal. So I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. And just in case you're not familiar with Zoom, you will see that there is a place where you can chat. So if you go down up to the your panel where you'll find different functions, I'd love you to type in there what you're wanting to achieve this year, just a simple thing as in 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, so that I also know that you can actually hear me and that you know where the chat function is. So go ahead and type in the chat section what you're hoping to achieve this year in just a simple word of over the distance. So hopefully you can find it. Perfect, lovely. Thanks, Lydia and Georgia and Stuart. Half marathon, marathon, marathon. And just check. Michelle, excellent. 10K, Mariah, 10K without walking, perfect. Mariah, it's so lovely to see you here after doing Couch to 10K. It's fantastic. Wonderful. All right, well, what we'll do is we'll get going and hopefully you can see my screen. Just type in there if you have any questions as we go. If you cannot see my full screen at any point in time, just let me know as well. And any questions, fire away. So really, what we want to do is take you along a roadmap, because it's that roadmap that's actually helped so many people train for a marathon and half marathon and the 10K and be able to eventually really confidently call themselves a runner, and not just a runner, but actually change running so it becomes part of your life. So even though you've all got goals here at the moment, it's really what you're going to achieve is totally unexpected and unknown at this moment in time. And hopefully you've had a chance to check out the landing page from for Runners School and seen the in-training website and followed some of the stories of our runners, because that's exactly what happened to them. So eventually, everybody will hopefully experience this runner's high dream, where it's just an incredible feeling that you'll be out there on a run one day thinking, this is really awesome, and it's wish the run would never end. But I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. I'm Margot. Steve and I, my husband, I'll be the host for tonight. And we own In Training Running Centre. Steve's been coaching since he's 18. So that's actually a very long time ago. We've had running groups for everybody from 5K, 10K, beginners, recreational runners to advanced training groups, all up right through to the marathon. So it's just been a real pleasure for us to see so many people experiencing so many lovely things with their running, and hopefully that will be you guys too. So let's move on, because I'd love to show you here how your running is a journey. It's actually taking you outside of that expectation that you have and actually meeting a lot of people that you haven't even met yet, and they will become almost like your best friend running buddies. So if you look at the group of runners here, this lovely group, they met at the beginners running group. Several of them had done the Couch to 10K program, and over a period of 2 to 3 years, they've because they're all about the same pace, they went from not being able to run 5K to be able to run 5K to be able to run 10K to half marathon, and then together about a year or just over a year ago, they decided that they were going to do the New York Marathon together. So it was a collective group experience and challenge that they took, but with a group of people that they had not met prior to joining the Marathon School program or the Couch to 10K program. And Stephen Poon, and you can see there with Robert De Castella, which is really lovely for them. But he said he could not have achieved my dream without calling myself a marathoner without in training. The Marathon School, in training club, and training group. So it's a really big support network that is available. Stephen actually, he spoke on Sunday, and we will actually get his video up at some point. He's got a lovely story of just an audio on the landing page. So if you want to hear more about what he had to say, that was actually prior to going to New York. We had talked about how he was running 7-minute kilometers. I thought he was really, really slow, was frightened to come to the group, actually came to the beginners group once and then didn't come back for a while, and then returned with his wife, and they've just loved the whole supportive community and the training plans and everything that goes with it to help him achieve his marathon goal. So what is it that we're actually helping you to do? So for some of you, it might, well, for several of you who are training for your half marathon and marathon, then you're beyond wanting to just be a runner. But at some point, it may have been that you were wanting to be a runner. For Michelle, for example, she followed her family around. She's in the top picture in the black singlet, watching them run, watching them achieve medals, and just having a great time together. And then finally, she took the step herself and she took up running. She still walks at Parkrun, but she loves it and loves being able to do something with her family. The group down here, which Mariah, you were actually part of this collective group on the left-hand side. They were our Capture 10K runners from last year. And I know that several of them have joined the Runners School program already with the plan that as a group, they're going to work towards the half marathon next year. But the next step is being able to go from a new runner to a lifelong runner. And that's where running becomes a lifestyle. And Paul is a classic example of this. So Paul began when he was a little bit overweight. He decided he wanted to actually run a marathon. Actually, he wanted to run a half marathon, but he bypassed that and somehow fell into running into a marathon process. And he searched around and eventually found the In Training Marathon School program. Joined in, started coming to the training groups and met Maddie Horston, who is his pal, you'll see in the picture there. And together they've trained countless of half marathons and marathons. And over time, Paul then has found that running became a really important part of his life. His family have embraced it. He's had 2 kids since when he first started with us. And his children just are growing up in a running family. In fact, his youngest daughter, he sent me an email once that said, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be a marathoner and I want you to be on the side of the road saying, 'Go In Training.'" So they love being a part of the whole running community. Paul actually is now the president of the In Training Running and Triathlon Club. He's a coach with Maddie. They've both moved into that phase, and together with this group of people and many, many more other runners, they travel to different running events all around Queensland, and they're traveling overseas as well. Paul did the Paris Marathon last year to celebrate his 40th birthday. So 2 more runners that I'd like to share with you. One is Amanda Cutlack at the top left. Now, her experience at running the marathon was sheer elation, just how amazing it was. And it's been really fun listening to her story because she was really quite uncertain about being able to start and not knowing quite what direction to take. And that's when she hopped online and just started searching until she found the Marathon School. And then all the different processes and education, which is what she really wanted to learn in order to be successfully completing the distance. Now, Donna, I love her story because Donna came to the Marathon School launch several years ago to listen to her husband speak. He had gone through the program the previous year. Now, Donna was not an exerciser. In fact, she avoided exercising. But after hearing the launch, she said to her husband, "You know what? I'm going to join the Capture 10K program." And he questioned her and said, "Well, really? Are you really going to do that? Because you don't even like going to the gym." Anyway, she signed up. She dragged her daughter along with her to the very first session because, like most runners, when they first come to the sessions, they're very nervous and thinking that they're too slow or they might be out of place or they don't know anybody. But so she dragged her daughter, and her daughter, being faster than her, took off in the session, and she ended up running with a few ladies who she's now done many half marathons and 10K runs with. But for Donna's story, what I really love about is that she's, since that first time when she signed up, has run many half marathons. She now travels around the countryside with her husband Colin and last year did the Outback Uluru half marathon. And I got a message from them this week where they're going to be doing their first ultra run. Well, Colin's doing this ultra run, and Donna's participating in her first marathon, I think. So she's really gone through the whole process, along the whole roadmap, and has discovered a place that she never ever believed that she would be able to do. This is Matty Horston. He's was Paul Broad's friend, and he's just really enjoyed the process. And I love what he said, where he said that he thought running around the block was okay to train for a half marathon, but not the 42.2. And then he describes the running school as well, it was actually the marathon school when he went through it, but he described the running school as a place and a summary of all the information that had been put together by the coaches and other runners who have participated and since become coaches with the structured program. And so while when you're out running, you may have experienced this, and I certainly have done it, you will always learn as a runner, is that you will make many mistakes. But as you get the structure and the support and all the tips and the strategies, you'll find that you'll actually make fewer and fewer of those mistakes, and you'll become so much more confident in thinking, well, I'll know how to approach my next run so that I won't slow up significantly. And on that, pacing strategies in teaching you how to know not to slow up in a race or be able to run so you don't slow up is a key piece that we like to teach everybody. And we've got so many different ways and applications to learning how to pace so that you can have the very best outcome when you're actually doing your goal race. So who are you going to do this with? We have a coaching team of 40 coaches that are with 30 active coaches groups around Brisbane, and they range from beginners group to intermediate groups. So we have groups at St Lucia, we have groups at Chermside, New Farm Park. New Farm Park actually has 7 groups, including the beginners groups. We have Indooroopilly, Springfield. We've got a new one that's just started up at the Gold Coast tonight. Actually, it's first night. And we have Stones Corner. We have Cleveland. There are just groups all around. And one of the benefits of having so many different groups, particularly if you're going to the beginners group, or if you're going to the Tuesday speed group or the Thursday threshold sessions for the half marathon and marathon program, they do the same session at any group. So if for some reason you cannot get to one group, you can actually go to another group. Fiona Gregory, who spoke on, and we'll have a video of her as well, she was able to, liked being able to go to different groups at different times based on where she was working at that moment. Same as Stephen Poon. Stephen Poon started at Nathan, and he then would sometimes switch to the New Farm Park group. So the runners, you'll soon learn that you're actually able to move around. But what I want to also tell you about is in that group of coaches that you see there, several of them have gone through the process on their running journey from being at a beginning point like you might be, and then working their way through until they now have changed into loving running and enjoying sharing running with everybody else and try and help them improve their own running. Jared Ryan, who is at the front, just in front of the door, he has this fantastic story of when he was overweight, he was smoking, and he decided to make a change. And eventually he stumbled across in training, and he came to the beginners group. And he told me that he was so nervous, like incredibly nervous, that he almost left. Anyway, he plucked up the courage and walked up to the beginners group and joined in, was really welcomed by Linda Watson, who was the coach at the time, and all the other runners. And he loved it until eventually he still loved it, but until he eventually became too fast for the group. And Linda had to very gently nudge him on. And he said that it was almost as if he went back to that first place again of being really nervous as he stepped into the Tuesday speed group. But the same thing happened where he arrived, and he was really welcomed by the runners, by the coach, and he's never looked back. And he since has... he became a coach. He's run several marathons. He's actually quite a quick runner. He's became our coaching director for many years before Greg Scanlon took on the job. And he's just really fantastic at encouraging and supporting runners as they come, like you, who come through the program. So there's a very, very big community of runners there to support you, and everybody wants to share their journey and provide whatever information and answer your questions as you discover what you want to do with your 10K, your marathon, and your half marathons. So this is a bit more about the training groups. There's the speed groups, threshold sessions, and the Sunday long runs. Those three are all designed for the half marathon, marathon program. There is the beginners groups, which are on Monday and Wednesdays, and you will also be able to attend, obviously, the Sunday long runs. And everybody on those Sunday long runs, they will, you'll be guided as to which distance to run. So there's a structured program that will take you through with a guide, a distance range that will help you know what you've got to do. So what I want to show you now is this Runners School roadmap. This is where you'll become on this journey, and this is what Runners School takes you through. And that is where you will actually begin at one end, where you might be feeling a bit nervous. You might be questioning, what have I got to do to actually achieve that goal? How am I actually even going to be able to run that distance? And especially in this heat in Queensland, it's very easy to feel like everything is much harder than it actually is. So it'll be very nice when it actually turns cooler. After you've got your running goal, you're then taken through the process of understanding the program. Now, when you enter into the Runners School, you will pick a stream of whether you're doing the Marathon School program, which is the half marathon, marathon school, or you'll pick the stream of Couch to 10K, which is where we build you up to working from up to 5K and then to 10K. And both of those programs will take you through the phases of training. We'll take you through the cycles that you will have. You'll have going from the strong weeks to recovery weeks, and how that all works in a progression to eventually get you to your race day. Now, the third part of this is becoming a master pacer. This is a really important part of running. Doesn't matter whether you are a beginner or whether you're a really, really experienced runner. It doesn't matter whether you're a slow runner or whether you are a really speedy runner. Mastering the art of pacing has a huge impact on how successful and how enjoyable your runs can be. So we look at our goal race. You've all put down something there that you want to participate and aim for. When you get to that goal race day, you want to feel like you really understand and have a race strategy. It's where you know that you can start at a certain pace and work through that until you can still be feeling relatively strong at the end of the race, or at least not feeling like you've had the wheels fall off, or you're feeling as if you're really struggling, or you just feel completely depleted. And that all comes back to learning how to pace yourself. And a lot of all the speed works that we have developed, which Steve has actually written this program. Well, it's been written for a very, very long time. The Marathon School program itself is about 15 years old. So all of these sessions are based around what your 5K pace is, and then teaching you how to internalize that pacing, get an understanding of it. And for a period of time where we'll really be teaching you how to actually use your watch and then not use your watch. So once you get that strategy, have a good understanding of it, you can transfer what you're doing from your training into your racing. And this is where becoming a master racer helps. And it doesn't matter, again, whether you feel as if you're a slower runner, you can still find that becoming a master racer is a huge accomplishment. And you will know it once you actually finish your race and really get the time you want, or even if you don't get the time you want, you know that you have actually run the best possible race you could that day. That is about becoming a master racer. And along with that, our coaches are really fantastic at being able to support you with racing strategies, with pacing strategies, and helping you to know, well, how do you approach a race? Finally, you get to race day. Race day is the ultimate part of when that you've been aiming for that whole time. And let me tell you that let's go back pedaling right back to where you've got my running goal. you're going to be really excited when you first start that, because it is an exciting time to start beginning a new program, you know, and the whole discovery of what you have. You'll get partway through that, between that understanding the program, becoming a master pacer, and then you'll start to think, how on earth am I going to actually go from running 15K up to 21K? Or for a marathoner, how on earth am I going to be able to run, if I'm running 25K now and it feels like a really hard slog, to 42.2K? If you're working up to running the 10K, the same thing happens right from the beginning of, oh, how am I going to run that 5K? And then eventually get up to 10K. And then look at all those people who are actually running half marathons and marathons. It's really amazing how you move along that road and eventually get to race day. And by race day, you'll feel confident. You'll still feel nervous on the start line. That definitely happens. And again, that happens to no matter what level of runner you are. But it really is a very, very exciting moment to stand on that line, knowing that you have gone through a whole process to get there, and then about to begin the next journey, which is actually the race. After your race day, hopefully it'll be a successful one for you, or hopefully it'll be a good experience for you. Running becomes part of your life. And although it sounds very cliched, it really is true. You should talk to a lot of the runners. If you get the opportunity, come even into the shop and have a talk to our staff there. They're all runners. They will all love talking running. Runners always like to talk about running experiences they've had and tips that they've discovered. It's just a really fabulous place to be. So for Julia Brisky, where she's was one of the crew who went to New York. She said that she would never have believed that she could have achieved so much in such a short space of time. Now, Julia's story, again, is a really fun one, because she had taken up running and could not run 5K. She just kept trying. After 6 months, she could not run 5K. So she actually eventually hooked into the program, the Couch to 10K program, and worked with James Bell, who was the coach at the beginners group at Milton. And the one thing he said to her that really hit home was, if you want to get faster, you have to actually run slower. And this again comes back to that pacing strategy. But with Julia, I had an interview with her last year sometime, because she had gone through the Couch to 10K, run several half marathons. And it was at the beginning of when she was thinking about going to New York and run the marathon. And I showed her original story, because I love getting stories from people. And I showed her her original story, and she said, oh my gosh, I can't remember that at all. She had come such a long way that it was really hard for her to remember where she had been previously. And she had achieved so much in that time. It's really exciting. And she's since had her niece come along and just developed a lovely group of friends who are traveling the world and traveling to all sorts of fun runs now on weekends. Running has definitely become a lifestyle for those guys. But Darren Manson, he, in a very short space of time last year, took up running and went from a half marathon to a marathon. And he's got a really fun story again on our on our In Training website. So make sure you hop on and listen to that. And one of the things that he loves to share is the feeling of running past the In Training tent at the Gold Coast Marathon. It actually is a really awesome experience. Now, you've seen the red and white singlets. You can pick them from afar. And what happens is, at that moment in time when you're at Gold Coast, or at any of the races when we have our In Training tent there, the runners will be talking. Some will be watching at the fence, spotting our In Training runners, and they'll see from a distance the red and white singlet coming, and then they yell out, In Training runner coming, and the runners run over, and there's this huge amount of noise. And I have to tell you, it's actually an incredibly uplifting experience to know that you've got that support there as you're running past in that in the marathon and the half marathon. The same thing with the 10K on the day before. There's a crowd of our runners come and support the 10K runners, and they're all there cheering and helping everybody along. So let's go back to our runners roadmap, because for all those runners that I've shown you, they have been through this. And you might actually have a point on there that is where you think you are. And so it's then developing yourself as a runner even further, taking you to the next stage along your roadmap, or making it a much easier journey. So this is what we're going to do. In the first part, when it's your running goal, we look at helping you create the plan. We help you to become accountable to that program by just simply sharing and being a part of the Facebook group. There's opportunities for you to actually talk to the coaches, because it's in that moment in time where you may be feeling a little bit nervous about what is to come. It's then understanding the program, and which I have talked about already. It's understanding the runner's talk, learning how each of the sessions are run. So for example, today we had a rhythm kilometer session, which is one of our popular sessions that we do for our Tuesday sessions. And in that session, what we're doing is teaching you to run each kilometer 5 seconds faster than the previous one, with the goal of the second last rep being at your 5K pace. So it may sound a little bit complicated, but it is. This is one of the key sessions in really learning to internalize those pacing strategies. Now, it was quite fun today because at the session, not many people could get their targets because they'd either been off for the summer or they hadn't done it for such a long time. Quite a few were really excited because they actually did meet their target times. And that's such a great skill, and that makes it even more exciting when you realize that you can actually achieve that. Master Pacer. Now, one of the things that I've talked about the Master Pacer, and that's initially we get you to use your watches so that you can understand and get that, I can actually relate between what you're actually sensing when you're running with what you're actually seeing on the watch. And that's very important to develop that first component. If you don't have a watch, then I'd highly recommend you invest in one. But don't worry, if you're not keen on getting it, we'll eventually ask you to start to try and run without it. And that's when we will be entering this phase, introducing the no watch running. Because the no watch running is when you really get that sense of becoming a master pacer. We don't expect it all the time, but I love to challenge my guys on being able to run a half marathon or even a marathon without their watch on. And it's quite a daunting experience at first, and it's taken a bit of convincing, but many more of them are actually starting to do that now. And the sense of accomplishment they get is really incredible. In fact, one of their runners, Katie Meisner, she has told me that she actually prefers now to often run without her watch. Going from there is the Master Pacer and the Golden Phase. Now, the Golden Phase, I've described Master Racer, but in part of that is developing that self-control. You need to be able to be put into situations so that you don't go out too fast. When you're caught up in the rush of the start of a run, you may have even experienced this yourself at parkrun or in other fun runs, where there's just so much adrenaline going, there's so much chatter and running excitement that it's very easy to take off way too fast. And if you do that, particularly in a marathon, you will find the back end of your race very, very challenging. So it's about becoming a master racer. It's about developing a new feel of running. And that is being able to step out of the comfort zone in which we train in for most of the time, and we have to train in so that we don't burn out and don't get injured. But then taking you outside that level so that you can then push yourself and hopefully achieve the goals that you want to achieve, particularly if you're actually aiming for time goals. Now, time goals versus just finishing goals are also two separate things. And if you go back to the runner's map that we have, you can almost travel along that road with your original goal of a finish goal for whatever distance it is. You'll step up in distances at times. You may not want to step up, which is perfectly fine. A marathon or a half marathon is not for everybody. But at some point you'll go, oh my gosh, I've just run 55 minutes for the 10K and I think I can go that little bit faster. But there's ways that you have to actually train yourself, and your ways you have to prepare yourself when you're going into a marathon, into the race, so that you know how to be able to push and get to that point where you can run that little bit faster. So it's actually being able to move comfortably out of your comfort zone into a place where what I like to call is where the magic happens. So it's being able to transfer all of the training strategies that you have learned, all of the tips that you will get from the coaches and from other runners into these more significant running goals. Race day. I've put my running mantra at the very top because this is a really important skill to learn as a runner, particularly when you're trying to achieve a new distance or you're trying to achieve a new time. It's amazing what self-chatter can have both a negative and a positive impact. And so it's what we talk about a lot through this process in how to make your headspace a great space in order to achieve your goal. We do a lot with nutrition throughout this. In fact, nutrition is a topic that everybody has a lot of questions about. Liz Lovering is our dietitian at In Training, and she will be presenting a couple of times throughout the year. And we have lots of tips that come from her. So it's a part of the process too, is you will need to learn, well, what is your nutrition for race day? What's your nutrition that you need for training? Because it's about being able to find the level of food that you can eat and that will sustain you with the amount of training that you will be doing. And then finally, it's about getting the race done. The last phase I've talked about is where running is a lifestyle. You'll love it. And I know I've said it before, but I can't tell you how much of a change you're going to experience as you go through this journey in your running. Even for those of you who are training for a half marathon or marathon, it is really a incredible experience when you cross the line for your first marathon. So many of our runners, Paul Broad, who I talked about earlier, he has no shame whatsoever in asking people or telling people how much he cries at nearly every end of every marathon, particularly his first. Marty Kelly is a runner who has joined the marathon school in the last 12 months, and he was actually in the Facebook live interviews that we did the other night. So if you haven't seen us already, jump back on and just listen to what the people have said and listen to Marty. Now, Marty took up running about 5 years. I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but it wasn't really a long time. But he's a very fast runner. He ran 3:16 for his marathon. And I like to be able to share his story because to show how even the marathon school has been really valuable for him, for somebody who can actually run really fast, because what he wanted was the structure. He wanted the training advice to be able to know that as he goes along his pathway towards that marathon, he's going to be guided and he's going to have a fairly sensible approach and an approach to his training that works with his life and also gives him good confidence in his ability to be able to complete the distance. So his first marathon was in actual fact not as fast as what he was hoping, but he loved the experience and he loved the support on the course. Because whenever you see those red and white singlets, you will get a go in training cheer. It doesn't matter if you don't even know them, and they will shout it across the road to you. It's really, really fun. In fact, last year I ran the marathon at Gold Coast simply to be a part of the crowd and simply to experience that community support of all our runners. So this is what you will experience from our runners school. We have 4 key pieces of information for you. First one is the monthly seminars, which are from different experts who we have. So Steve will be the first one kicking off next week, and he'll actually go through the program. We're going to have a program that will operate for the marathon school program, so that's half marathon marathoners, and then the next day we're going to have a presentation for the Catch 10K and take you through the program in that one. So these seminars are with strength with our physio. There is nutrition with Liz. There's actually training nutrition, so fueling for training, and then fueling for the race. So there's 2 separate ones there, knowing how to actually carbo load, knowing what to eat the day before, how to actually manage that with your life. The second major piece, which is other training sessions, and these will be given to you in blocks of 6 to 8 weeks. So that way you can actually see what's coming up ahead, but it's not that we don't want to give it to you, but it's a way of keeping you accountable, because it's easy when you get a really long block of training that if something happens, such as getting an injury, or life gets in the way and your routine gets broken, it's easy to actually drop off. And so by having smaller chunks keeps you more connected with what you need to do, and it keeps you more accountable. You'll also have the posts put up into the Facebook pages that you'll be a part of. The third key piece is a live Facebook session, a 10 in 10 really. So it's 10 questions in 10 minutes. And that will be with Steve and myself, or with one of us and a guest. And so this is a really great opportunity where you can ask questions about your training. You can ask questions about your niggles. You know, it's about anything that you have to do with running. And this to me is really critical as well, particularly if you aren't able to get to the sessions all the time, because being connected and staying connected and staying engaged with the support network that you have means that you are more successful in achieving your goal. So it's when you start to, when things change in your life and you break that routine, for whatever reason it happens, and it's easy to start to get more distant from the group, thinking, oh, that's just depressing to actually be not running and in there. But it's actually those moments when you really, really need to connect. And those moments, you know, we have a world of experience. You know, our physio and our podiatrists, they're all runners. Our coaches, they've had so much experience behind them. And injuries, they've had illnesses, they've had family crises that they've had to deal with. And so they all know what it's like. They all know how difficult it can be, but they all know how important it is to stay connected. Finally, the fourth piece is a monthly challenge. And I'm not actually going to tell you what that monthly challenge is, because it is related to pacing strategies. And we're going to have a mix of those every month. And it's in those when you'll be able to practice mini racing. You'll be able to practice getting that sense of how good you are at becoming a master pacer and eventually a master racer. But the monthly challenge is really about putting those pacing strategies into play. And on that, just want to say that you would have hopefully saw that pacing strategies is something that you will never, ever not learn, and you will always be practicing it and always fine-tuning it. In fact, one of the things I really love doing is being able to go to Brisbane Roadrunners Club, who we have a very strong relationship with. They're fortnightly events over at West End. And I love being able to go in there and thinking, okay, I've got to be able to do a specific time and for my first kilometre. And it's, you know, when you've really nailed it, when you actually get that time. So it's quite an exciting achievement to be able to do that. And it's something that, well, if you might be able to do it now, which is absolutely awesome, but it's something that you should be able to work towards. So what is included in the Runner School program? We have the training program, which is structured with speed sessions. You have threshold sessions and you have long runs. So that is really what you're going to get if you're joining the marathon school. And that's regardless of whether you're doing a half marathon or a marathon, and even if you're trying to get your 10K faster. So there's Gary Campbell, who trains out with the In Training Springfield group. He sent in a message and said how successful and happy he was after being a part of the marathon school and coach under coaching with Peter Runn, the In Training coach there. At being able to have the structure of the speed sessions and structure of all the different programs. But this year, after doing several halves and a marathon, he now wants to step back and actually do a 5K and a 10, the 5Ks and 10Ks, and try and get his time down. So you see, you never will ever really stop learning and never stop trying to challenge yourself or just to have new experiences with running. And that's what's so fantastic about that roadmap, because you'll travel along it and then you'll get to a certain point, and it's almost like you reset at a new level of running, and then you travel along that roadmap again, always learning something new. Monthly seminars, which we've talked about, the training, nutrition, strength, pacing, and racing. The monthly Facebook Live Q&As, that is, I've also talked about, with where you'll have that opportunity to chat with Steve and myself and other experts and other coaches and other runners. pacing strategies and challenges. And you'll also get, as part of the membership, the In Training Running and Triathlon Club membership, which is, and if you're a member already of the In Training Running and Triathlon Club, you'll get the first 2 months free. So, which is a bonus if you are there already. With that, you will get the In Training singlet. And as I said before, you're going to love that singlet, and you're going to be amazed at how many cheers you get. And I can't remember which runner it was, but they said to me the other day they didn't realize what it meant to actually put that singlet on, and they were really surprised at even people who they didn't know, not only just runners but even spectators, yelling out "Go In Training." And it's such a boost when you actually have that happen. You'll get the discounted sessions with the training fees. So at each of the training sessions, it will be $5 as opposed to $10, no matter where you go amongst the groups. You'll get an awesome team of coaches and training groups. And we actually, as coaches, do get together monthly. We have online coaching meetings. We're supporting each other. We're talking about what's coming up. We're talking about how we can develop the program. We're having professional development components, and we have quarterly meetings where we actually get together in a live meeting. So we're always working together as a team very cohesively, and it's just that strength of that is makes the network again so much more encouraging and supportive for you. There will be private Facebook pages. So we will have the Umbrella Running School Facebook page. Now that Facebook page is where all the Q&A will actually happen. And initially where you'll get a lot of the links in the communication. You will get reminder emails, but eventually we'll be transitioning to a new platform where, which will be happening over the next 4 to 6 months. And the seminars will be created as links onto that new platform. But in the meantime, the Runner School, it's a closed group, Facebook page is where you'll get all the main information. When you join, you'll have the option of joining the marathon or half marathon stream, or you'll have the option of joining the Couch to 10K stream. And once you do that, then there is a Facebook page for each of those groups. And we do that particularly to support our Couch to 10K runners. Because a Couch to 10K runner, it's a lot more daunting than somebody who has been running for a while and is preparing for their first half and full. While that is still can be quite a daunting experience, the conversations are quite different. And so we want to support everybody, no matter what level they are, but support them in a space where they feel comfortable. So Couch to 10K runners will have that space. And then half marathoners and marathoners will have that space. And that's there they'll get a little bit more tailored communication based on what your needs are. And there, in these Facebook groups, again, going back to the concept of making sure you stay connected, this is where you again hop in there and post if you've celebrate some great runs. Everybody wants to share your celebration. Post in there if you are struggling, because there are so many other runners who will be going through that process, but there will be our coaching team who will be in there and be able to support you when you are finding things difficult. Because remember that most of those coaches have come from a beginning or a lower base running, who have gone through the half marathon program. Some of them have actually gone through the Couch to 10K program and gone up to now where they're loving being a part of your journey. There's, of course, I've talked a lot about the friendly and supportive ready-made community of runners who have just been like you. There's also our Runners School long sleeve shirt, which will be arriving in April. And that's hopefully you've seen some of the runners around with the Marathon School t-shirt on. So they're now part of the Runner School. It stands out, and it's really fantastic, particularly in the cooler months when you have go to the events and you want something a little bit warmer, something to keep you a bit warmer. So you might be thinking at this point, is the program for me? Is the program going to work if you are traveling, if you can't get to the sessions? In fact, it's one of the questions we get a lot is, I can't make all the sessions. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. And this is one of the developments we're doing with our Runner School is trying to provide much more of a support network so that if you aren't able to train at the groups, because it is just, while it's incredibly valuable to be at the groups, it's not always possible. And so we are developing our virtual Run Buddies program so that there's an outreach for you that you can connect with if you need that. You've got the Facebook pages to connect with, and the Q&A sessions are all about trying to help making sure that you've got opportunities to ask the questions if you cannot get to the training groups. The structured program that you have, you do not have to be at the groups to go to them. And the program, I'd like to also let you know, is what we classify as a minimalist training program. So it's based on 3 to 4 sessions a week, which is, well, for the Capture 10, we're working on alternating 3 to 4 sessions with a rest or recovery day. For the half marathoners, and anyone in that stream, you'll have the speed, the threshold, a park run or a weekend little race, and then the long run or Brisbane Roadrunners Club. So we've programmed that all out for you. It's planned up to each of the major races, and it's all planned in a way that gives you your cycle of strong training weeks and then a recovery week. So you really don't have to think about it. And it was one of the runners on Sunday who actually said that they loved the fact, Fiona Gregory actually, she said that she loved the fact that she did not have to think about what she had to do. Another question you might have is that I'm slow, I'm at the back of the pack, am I going to be too slow for this? Am I going to be left behind? Well, we have quite a few of our speakers that have come are people who have been towards the back of the pack. They have been some of our slower runners. Stephen Poon, as I mentioned earlier, he was running slower than 7-minute kilometres. And he said the other day that he did, when he first started with us, his first time trial that he did was about 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And a couple of weeks ago at training, we did one of our kilometre time trials, and he ran 5:45. So he had actually broken the 6 minute, actually not just broken, he just smashed the 6 minute time barrier. But he would always say to the runners at the group, I'm so slow, should I be here? And all the runners and James Bell, the coach, would say, no, you'd be here. And he's just stuck to that. He's taken on that support, and look at where he is. He's completed his first marathon at New York in 2018. It wasn't an easy marathon for him. He had a niggly foot, so he actually ended up walking the whole process. So he feels like he's got a beast to yet beat, but he still did it, and he did it by staying connected, and he did it by knowing that even though he was a slower pace, he could still be a part of the community and part of the support network, and still be able to follow the training program. Another question you might have is, how am I going to fit those long runs in? How am I going to fit it in around my life? Very busy. And it is a busy world. You might have family, you might have work commitments, you might be traveling. The program is designed so that Steve has actually always designed this so that you can just do what you need to do in order to achieve the goal that you want. And that is getting those just on those 3 to 4 sessions a week. In fact, before Parkrun even existed, it was actually a three session a week program for marathon, half marathon school. Now, we've had thousands of people come through this marathon school program, and so many successful stories. And it's based on that minimalist program. If you're wanting to add more into that, like if you are a level above needing the minimalistic program, which several of our runners have worked to, or several of our runners are, then you can do that. Make sure when you do that, though, it's good to check in with the coaches and just say, oh, look, I want to actually run 5 times a week. How do I do that? In the Q&A sessions, it's a perfect time for you to actually ask those questions as well. So it really is a lot of scope for you to be able to make it work around your life. In fact, one of our training groups that we have is, we call it Night Flies. It's in Indooroopilly at 7:30 p.m. And we set that up originally, and originally called it Wife Night, simply so that people could tag team if they had a family. And so it was made later in the evening so that one parent could get home and get out the door and the other parent could go running, particularly useful if you have two runners in the family. So finally, this is the running school has, we've changed the way in which the structure is in a payment schedule. And that is, we're looking at, it's $27 a month. And this has been a really, everyone has commented on how good this concept has been, because it aligns with the whole roadmap story. When you are beginning on that journey, you will find that you will be at one place, particularly if you're coming from a couch to 10K background. And at some point you'll get along that journey and you'll want to step up and change into becoming a half marathon marathoner. So the whole idea of this is to enable that to have an easy transition, as opposed to having our individual programs, which meant that you had to wait until one ended and one began. With this one, it'll enable you to really craft the journey that you want with your running. It'll enable you to be able to take the progress that you want from learning the pacing strategies and developing that to a first end goal that you might have, to then resetting again on that roadmap and starting on your next running journey. So there's a scope for you to be able to move along at the pace that you want, and actually to challenge yourself at the pace that you want. And the other part that we're offering to everybody who joins in this, our first intake of Runner School, is that if you join at this $27 a month, that is the price that you will be at for as long as you stay within the program. Even when the doors reopen, because we will be closing the doors on this on Friday night for this first intake, that when the doors reopen, they will be at a higher price. And we're doing this because we're still developing our platforms. You will find there will be a shift in platforms as we go. Even in when you first join up, you'll be joining up through our streamlined events registration system, which we've been using for all our fun runs, all our programs in the past, and then transitioning into our membership platform hopefully within 4 weeks' time. And if, as I mentioned earlier, if you are already a member of the In Training Running and Triathlon Club for the 18-19 year, then you actually will get the first 2 months free, because that membership is included in the price. So I really hope that you can see what a great journey running can be for you. You can see how people, oh, excuse my dog in the background. You have seen how people have achieved their running dreams. Their lives have actually changed and become part of a supportive network. And finally, that running becomes their lifestyle. And I really hope that for you, that you can make this happen for you as well, and would love to see you a part of the In Training Runner School. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please post up now. I've got a moment in time. I'll hang around and you can ask. I can, so if you can post in the chat. Know that this is the website to go to, so that if you are wanting to join, then you can go to the landing page, and that will then take you to the link for a registration. We are closing the doors on Friday, and also tomorrow night, for those people who have already registered, we are going to jump in, and Steve and I are going to have a chat about what to expect, what to expect now that you're actually in the program. We're going to provide you with the links. We'll start to set you up with the training program. If you don't join until Friday, that's fine. We'll actually have the recording of that, and we will put that up so it's available for next week. And then next week, we're full swing into the seminar, first seminar, which will be talking about each of the training programs. So just before we go, I would love to know whether you are feeling anxious about what you have yet to achieve, you're feeling excited about what you would like to do for running, or if you are feeling as if you are just ready to get going. I've got a question from Michelle. Okay, so is there any difference between going to the New Farm and the Milton Beginners Training Groups? No, there's not. The program is the way the program works for the beginners groups is actually a little bit more challenging in implementing that. We do it obviously, but because everybody comes at different levels. But the base program that they do on Mondays and Wednesdays is the same for each of the groups. And the same goes for the Tuesday and Thursday groups for the half marathon sessions. Mariah, I am so excited you're excited. And, having seen you come through the Couch to 10K program and seeing the way that you guys have all connected is really, really been awesome. So yes, very excited for you, and can't wait to see what you do next. Stuart, how do you pay for the training sessions? Cash on the day? Yes, it is. So actually our sessions have been $5 for, oh gosh, I don't know how long for our in-training runners. Yeah, so it's just cash on the day. It's really good on your first day when you turn up to go and introduce yourself to the coach. You have to, if you're feeling a bit nervous, just bite the bullet and go and say hello. Tell them where you're at, and they will also sort of talk to you about the process. You sign on. How do you sign up if you have an in-training membership? Oh, good question. Greg Scanlon, the coach, has that. So if you type in, I'll just type in here, coaching@intraining.com.au, and we have a code. Oops, I've just typed in, see the coaching@intraining.com.au. That's the link for Greg Scanlon, who's the coaching director. And if you remember, just email him and he will send you the code. Just do it before Friday, preferably, so you're not rushed. And because if it turns into 11 o'clock on Friday night and you're trying to register, that might be a little bit more challenging. Mariah, if we follow the program, when are we expected to run our first half marathon? All right, so there is no expectation to run your first half marathon, but you can make that decision. When it comes to running a half marathon for your first time, well, you're at the point of nearly being able to run 10K nonstop. So what you want to do is to be able to just get that 10K under your belt. And then you don't actually have to run further than 16 kilometers in order to run your half marathon, which makes it suddenly become really achievable. So that just depends on how you are traveling. But definitely this year it's achievable. And you might find if you're doing the half marathon, we've got 8 weeks till the UQ Twilight Run on April 28th. That might be your 10K goal. And then by Gold Coast, there's no reason why you couldn't actually even aim for the Gold Coast half marathon if that's what you want. The trick is, and this is where it comes back to pacing strategies, and we'll take you through all of this, is that your first attempt at a distance, particularly if you haven't had a really long runway to that, should always be a more conservative approach. And one of the things that about pacing strategies and really understanding that is a big mistake that people make, is that they will go into a race, they'll be asked, oh, what are you going to do for a half marathon, or what time are you wanting to do for a 10K? And they'll be asked and they'll say, oh gee, I think I'll run about 2 hours, or I want to run an hour 55 or whatever time. And but I'll ask them, well, what do you do for 10K? What do you do for 5K? And they have no idea. So it's being prepared and knowing that gives you a much better understanding of how to then approach your half marathon. We've got Lydia. Lydia, excited and scared. Yes, absolutely. It's such an incredible mix of emotions. And let me tell you that even after many, many years of experience, standing on the start line of an event have exactly the same feeling of feeling really excited but really scared about what is actually you're about to do. But the really brilliant part about it is that you've got a whole network of people who feel exactly the same and have done that, and they're there to support you for it. Any plans to add long runs to Saturdays in the future? We don't really do that, partly because most people do come to the Sundays. However, there are people who do go to church on Sundays. There are people who have commitments or work commitments on Sundays. And because we have such a large community there, and once you sort of connect, if you are connecting in a group, then you'll find that there will be some people who can't run Sundays, and you can post up in the group, I can't make Sunday, is anyone else in that same boat to run a Saturday? What you need to do is just make sure that then it's all about combining your sessions. And so just making sure that you can have the proper recovery and you're not trying to run a really hard session on Sunday instead. Oh, yes, Stuart, to repeat the email, yes, it's coaching@intraining.com.au. So that's for Greg Scanlon, coaching@intraining.com.au. That's where you'll be able to get your code if you're already a club member. Michael, welcome. If your goal is a half marathon, but you haven't run more than 5K in the last year, should you start with the beginners program? Yeah, I would. I would start in the Couch to 10K because that gives you a much more conservative approach. You've got less chance of injuring yourself by getting too excited or just trying to it's more about loading yourself with training too soon. And what you'll find is that once you get through that 5K, you can then transition easily into the half marathon school program to get you to the half marathon. So yeah, absolutely. I'd start in the Couch to 10. Mariah, another question. What do the Sunday long runs from the shop look like? Will we be walking the same long distance as the other runners do, or will we start with shorter distances? Great question. Okay, well, let's start with the Sunday long runs. So the way the Sunday long runs is that everybody comes and meets. And actually, we will get between 80 to 100 people coming to that long run, particularly as everybody's beginning their new year. But don't be frightened by that, because it means by having such a big group, it's a really fantastic way to connect with other people who are about your pace. And so when you arrive, and Greg will be introducing each of the sessions on the Sundays most of the time. We have this year, it's one of our new developments in the program is to give people the opportunity, we'll actually have paces for each group. So we'll have maybe a 7-minute a kilometre pace group. We'll have a 6:30 a minute a kilometre pace group, a 6-minute kilometre pace group, and so on. And it just depends on who's available from our community who will be there. But some of them will be experienced and they will be doing longer distances. But back to the second question that you have of will we be walking the same long distances? Your distance that you will cover is not going to be the same as everybody else, no, because it will depend on where you are at in your program. So if you are still at that working up to the 10K, then there will be other people who will be, you'll set off with, but you might turn back earlier than what they do. So that's the beauty of it. And we'll be running the same direction so that the course direction will be the same for everybody. You will start with shorter distances, yes, definitely. And everybody starts with different distances. And as you connect more into the running groups and you start to meet more people and you'll find people who are about your pace and training for similar things as you, then you'll meet them and be able to train with them and have some running buddies out there on the course. All right, well, there's no further questions, then make sure I'd like you to do 3 things. I'd like you to hop onto the website, ourintraining.com.au, and go and have a listen to some of the stories that are there. Julia's story and Darren's story, Stephen's story. Hop onto the landing page, listen to Matty Horston. He's got a really awesome presentation of his experience with 3 great tips, which I'm going to leave for you to go and look at and listen to. So that's the first thing. The second thing is ask questions if you have them. Post up onto the shop Facebook page. Email Greg at that coaching@intraining.com.au. Message me. Message run@intraining.com.au. There's so many different ways, but ask. The third one is don't leave it to make sure if you're interested and wanting to do it, don't wait to too late, because on Friday this week we are closing the doors to this intake so that we can then jump in there and really make sure that we are able to support you and help you along your running journey. So all the best, everybody. Thanks for coming along. And I hope to see you sometime very, very soon out there on the road. Happy running.